She mopped the same hallway every single night for 2 years. She never complained. She never asked for anything. And she had absolutely no idea that the little boy dying in room 4B upstairs was still alive because of her. This is not a fairy tale. This is the kind of story that makes you stop and ask yourself, how many people have I walked past today without truly seeing them? Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you are new here, click on that subscribe button right now so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Her name was Serena Bell. 38 years old. Single. Raising her 7-year-old niece, Lila, in a 1-bedroom apartment on the east side of Chicago. Every morning she came home from her overnight shift at Mercy General Hospital smelling like bleach and exhaustion. She would shower, make Lila's lunch, walk her to school, come back, and sleep maybe 4 hours before doing it all again. She never complained. She never explained herself. She just kept moving, quietly, steadily, invisibly, the way women like Serena have always kept the world from falling apart. Most people at Mercy General had never learned her last name. She was just the overnight cleaner. Always there when the hallway needed clearing. Never there when someone thought to say thank you. The man who funded the hospital's entire East Wing renovation had walked past Serena Bell more than 40 times over 2 years. His name was Brian Cole. 43 years old. Tech CEO. Net worth somewhere north of $3 billion. Brian was not a cruel man. He was simply absent, the way powerful people sometimes drift from the ordinary world without realizing it has happened. He knew the name of every investor in his portfolio. He could not have told you the name of a single person who cleaned those hospital floors. His son, Jacob, had been a patient at Mercy General since he was 5 years old. Now 7, Jacob had spent more nights inside a hospital than outside of one. He had diamond black fan anemia, a rare condition where the bone marrow cannot produce enough red blood cells to sustain a child's life. Brian had flown in specialists from 4 countries. He had funded private research partnerships. He had done everything money could do. And still, Jacob's survival came down to one thing money could not manufacture: the right blood, from the right person, given freely and often. Not the billions. Not the specialists. A stranger's blood. And that stranger was mopping the hallway 1 floor below. Serena had started donating blood years before she ever worked at Mercy General. It began with her mother. When Serena was 26, her mother Claudette was diagnosed with uterine cancer. During surgery, Claudette lost a dangerous amount of blood. Strangers came in and gave. Claudette survived. She had 14 more months, 14 months of Sunday dinners, old photographs, and teaching little Lila to braid her own hair. Those months were a gift. And Serena never forgot who made them possible. People who had rolled up their sleeves for a woman they would never meet. Claudette passed on a Tuesday morning in March, holding Serena's hand. Her last words were simple. Never let hardship make you careless with kindness. And then she was gone. 3 months later, Serena registered as an anonymous blood donor. AB negative, one of the rarest types in the country. She gave every 8 weeks. She never asked who received her blood. She felt that asking would turn a gift into a transaction. She just gave, and walked away, quiet about it the way she was quiet about everything that mattered to her. Now before we continue, have you ever done something good for someone and deliberately kept it anonymous? Not for credit. Not for recognition. Just because it was the right thing to do? Hold on to that thought. Because what Serena was doing was about to cost her far more than anyone around her understood. When she joined the overnight staff at Mercy General, she had no idea her blood was already flowing through the veins of a child on the 4th floor. She pushed her cart through the corridors, learned which elevators ran slow on Thursdays, smiled at the nurses who acknowledged her, and kept her eyes down around the ones who didn't. She became part of the building the way furniture becomes part of a room, essential, unnoticed, always there. The first time she saw Jacob Cole was 2 weeks before Christmas of that first year. She was on break near the pediatric floor vending machines when she heard a child humming to himself from the family lounge at the end of the hall. She looked in. He was sitting cross-legged on a chair, sketchbook across his knees, markers spread around him. 7 years old, pale in a way that went deeper than winter pale, like a candle burning on its last inch of wick. But his eyes were enormous and completely alive, and he was drawing a dragon with approximately 9 legs and a top hat with the total seriousness of someone filing important paperwork. Serena knocked softly on the doorframe. "That is a very serious-looking dragon." Jacob looked up, studied her scrubs, studied her face, then looked back at his drawing. "He's a detective dragon. He only solves crimes near volcanoes." She pulled a chair over. "Smart. Specialization is important." He looked up with more interest. "Do you know what specialization means?" "I do," she said. "Do you?" He considered. "Sort of," he admitted. They talked for 11 minutes, she kept one eye on the clock. He told her about the dragon, about the hospital pudding being decent but the orange juice being the worst thing he'd ever tasted in his entire life, delivered with the gravity of someone who had truly suffered. She laughed. A real laugh, deeper than politeness. Before she stood to leave, she reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out a small silver coin, old, smooth, a woman's face on one side, a prayer in French on the other. Her mother's coin. She'd carried it every shift since the funeral. She held it out to Jacob. "When your detective dragon needs a clue." Jacob took it carefully. "What does it do?" "It reminded someone I loved that she wasn't alone," Serena said. "Maybe it'll do the same for you." She left before he could answer. She had floors to finish. What she did not know was that Brian Cole was asleep in the recliner in the corner of that same lounge, coat pulled over him, phone dark for the first time in weeks. He heard every word without opening his eyes. When the cart moved away down the hall, he lay there in the dark feeling something he hadn't felt in months. Something close to peace. He forgot about it by morning. He had calls before 7 and a flight to catch by noon. Months passed. At the blood donation center 12 blocks from the hospital, a coordinator named Diane had begun flagging Serena's records with quiet concern. Her hemoglobin was reading lower each visit. Diane called twice to suggest she extend the gap between donations. Serena listened politely. She showed up 8 weeks later and rolled up her sleeve anyway. What she didn't know was that the blood bank at Mercy General had her listed as a critical source for Jacob's transfusions. Her rare type. Her consistency. Every time Jacob had stabilized, every time the machine stopped screaming and Brian Cole had been allowed to exhale, a portion of that survival belonged to the woman mopping the floor below. He had no idea. She had no idea. And between them, a child was alive. The crisis came on a Wednesday night in late October. Serena had been on shift 3 hours when the pediatric ICU went into emergency mode, not the chaos of a movie, but the efficient, terrifying quiet of trained people moving very fast. She heard the code, felt the weight of it in her chest, and kept working. An hour later she found Brian Cole in the third-floor hallway, one hand pressed flat against the wall, eyes closed, breathing through his mouth the way people breathe when they are barely holding together. He had clearly just come from the airport, still in his coat. Serena stopped. She reached into the cooler bag at the bottom of her cart, pulled out her own bottle of water, and set it on the small table beside him without a word. She pushed her cart and kept moving. Brian opened his eyes 30 seconds later, saw the water, and drank it. 2 weeks later, Jacob stable again, another crisis survived. Brian spotted Serena pushing her cart past the nurse's station. Something made him follow. "Did you leave water outside the ICU a couple weeks ago?" She looked at him steadily. "It was just water. You looked like you needed it." He extended his hand. "Brian Cole." "Serena Bell," she said, and shook it. Then she went back to work. He stood there a moment longer than necessary. He looked up her name that afternoon. Read the job title. Set his phone down. Did not yet connect any dots. But something had shifted, the way tumblers shift inside a lock before the door opens. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The truth came in 3 pieces. The first was Jacob's sketchbook. On a good afternoon, Brian was flipping through it, page after page of elaborate creatures involved in what appeared to be a complex criminal network, when he turned a page and stopped. A drawing of a woman with a cleaning cart, labeled in careful 7-year-old print, "The Cleaning Angel." Jacob told him everything. The woman from the lounge. The coin. Brian looked at the silver coin hanging near Jacob's bed and felt something move in his chest that he couldn't name. The second piece came from Gloria, the charge nurse, 22 years at Mercy General and afraid of nothing. When Brian asked about Serena, Gloria put down her clipboard. "You want to know about Serena Bell?" She told him about the dollar store crane Serena bought on her own money and left for Jacob when his dried out. About how Gloria had noticed, over the past few months, that Serena was looking tired in a way that went beyond overnight shifts, clinically tired. The third piece came from the blood bank. After a private conversation with the chief medical officer, Brian understood everything. The anonymous AB-negative donor flagged as critical to Jacob's survival over the past year and a half, the one recently advised to stop donating due to dangerously low hemoglobin, who had come back 8 weeks later and given again anyway, was Serena Bell. Brian sat in his car in the parking garage for nearly 2 hours. His phone rang. He didn't answer. He thought about 47 hallway walks. A bottle of water left without a word. A boy drawing a 9-legged dragon and calling a cleaner his angel. A woman who had been quietly bleeding for his son while mopping his floors, asking for nothing, leaving no trace. He pressed his forehead to the steering wheel and stayed there. How would you feel in that moment? If you were Brian, sitting in that car, putting all of it together at once, what would it do to you? Tell us in the comments. Because what he did next is the part of this story that matters most. When Brian found Serena, she was finishing the 3rd-floor hallway near the fire door. Nearly 2 in the morning. She turned and saw him and went still. "I know," he said, before she could speak. "I know about the blood. I know about Jacob. I know what you've been doing." A long silence. "That was supposed to be anonymous," she said. "It was. I had to go through official channels." "Why?" "Because my son is alive," he said. "And I didn't know why." Another silence. "You walked past me," Serena said quietly. "Not an accusation. A fact. Every day for 2 years." "I know," he said. There was nothing else that could be said to that. The hallway held it between them. He didn't offer money first. He asked her to sit. They found the bench near the vending machines where Serena had eaten dinner alone on dozens of quiet nights. He asked her to tell him about her mother. And Serena, who had kept everything so internal for so long she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be asked a genuine question about herself, told him. About Claudette. About the surgery and the strangers and the 14 borrowed months. About the coin and the 7 final words. She talked for 20 minutes. Brian did not check his phone once. When she finished, he asked, "What do you need?" Not "What do you want?" "What do you need?" Serena looked at him. Better pay for the people in this department. Health coverage that actually works. And a scholarship fund for people in this building who want to go into nursing but can't afford school. She paused. "I want them to be seen." He nodded. "And you personally?" She looked down at the coin in her palm. "I want to finish my nursing degree," she said quietly, like she had never said it out loud before. "I stopped when my mother got sick. 2 semesters left." Brian looked at her for a moment. "Then let's finish it," he said. No fanfare. No performance. Just that. 3 months later, Brian Cole stood before the board of Mercy General and announced a $7 million commitment, restructured pay and real health coverage for all support staff, a rare donor recognition program, and a nursing scholarship fund in the name of Claudette Bell. He set his prepared remarks down at the end and looked at the room. The people who hold this hospital together are not always the ones with degrees on the wall. Sometimes they are the ones here at 2 in the morning doing work the rest of us never see. I was in this building for 2 years and I missed that. I'm saying it publicly because private acknowledgement is not enough. In the back row, Gloria was crying, which she denied to everyone who asked. Have you ever worked somewhere and felt completely invisible? Like what you did every day mattered, but no one around you seemed to notice. That feeling is one of the most quietly painful things a person can carry. And the people carrying it are all around you right now. For years later, Serena Bell walked across a stage at Northwestern University and became a nurse. Lila was in the front row in a yellow dress, screaming loud enough to embarrass the entire auditorium, which Serena considered the greatest possible gift. She was hired immediately into the pediatric unit at Mercy General. She had applied there on purpose. On her first day, she walked into the family lounge to introduce herself to a new family, and stopped. Sitting in the corner chair, cross-legged, sketchbook open across his knees, was Jacob Cole. 12 years old now. Healthier than she had ever seen him. He looked up, studied her face, and smiled the way you smile at something you never forgot. He reached into his pocket and held out the silver coin. Dad said I should return it. Serena sat down and took it. I told you it protected people, she said. Jacob shook his head. You said it reminded people to protect each other. He had kept the exact words. 7 years old, 2 in the morning, a 9-legged dragon in his lap, and he had kept every word. Serena sat with the coin warm in her hand and let herself feel all of it. The years. The miles of hallway. The 100 quiet decisions to keep going. She put the coin back in her pocket, same scrubs, different name on the badge now, and looked at Jacob. So what are you drawing today? He held up the sketchbook. A dragon. Sleeker now. Sharper eyes. No top hat, no extra legs, but unmistakably still a detective. He went international, Jacob said seriously. The volcano crimes moved overseas. Serena laughed, that real laugh, the deep one, and it filled the room. In the doorway, Brian Cole stood watching them both with the expression of a man who had finally learned the difference between being present and truly being there. Sometimes the person saving the world is not the one standing on stage. Sometimes it is the woman mopping the floor after everyone else has gone home, tired, underpaid, showing up anyway, giving what she has to a stranger she will never meet, asking nothing back. And sometimes the world finally notices. When was the last time you truly saw someone that everyone around you walked past? And who in your life has been giving quietly, without ever being thanked? Leave their name in the comments. Say it out loud. Because being seen, truly seen, is everything. If this story moved you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Cynthia's Tales, we tell stories like this every single week. We will see you in the next one.